Heffalumps aren't real. There's no such thing. The word heffalump is probably a corruption of the word elephant. And in the Disney cartoons, they're often portrayed as sort of elephant like things. So, Christopher Robin and Piglet and Pooh are all talking about this thing. And none of them want to be shown to not know what the heffalump is, so they all just talk about it in sort of general terms. And it's like, oh yes, I've seen one or two, and oh yeah, and they're all just sort of bragging about seeing it. And Pooh and Piglet both decide, okay, we're going to catch one. So they come up with the idea of we'll dig a pit, bait it. Now there's a few problems with this. One is that the heffalump might see the pit and not step into it. And so they don't know about camouflaging the pit and covering it with sticks and leaves and other things so that, you don't actually see the pit. The second thing is if little Piglet can climb out of the pit and Pooh can climb out of the pit, then is the pit really deep enough to catch something? And so if the pit is easy to climb out of so they can dig it, is it deep enough to actually catch something? And so, that's kind of a problem, but Pooh and Piglet aren't the sharpest tools in the shed. They aren't the shiniest hammer in the bag. So they come up with the idea of digging a pit, and they're like, bait it. And Pooh thinks, we'll bait it with honey because everybody loves honey. And Piglet is like, acorns, because acorns. And about at the same time, they both realize that their own choice of bait is more difficult for themselves. Because Piglet is like, hey, if we bait it with acorns, I'm going to have to go and find acorns. And Pooh is like, if we bait it with honey, I'm going to have to give up some of my honey. And Pooh does not like to give up his honey. But Piglet was a little bit quicker on the draw there. And he's like, you're right, honey. Go get your honey, Pooh. And so Pooh goes and gets the honey and eats most of it. Because, he's Pooh and he eats honey. He brings the honey jar back. Piglet's like, yeah, this is almost empty. And Pooh's like, yeah, I had to taste it. And honey does come in all sorts of different colors. And I guess some of it may resemble cheese. Quite often you get little bits of honey on plates with cheese and meat and charcuterie and crackers and whatever, because the sweet and savory go really well together. So putting honey on cheese is not that odd of a thing to try. Anyway, so honey, cheese. Anyway, Pooh ate most of the honey. And he comes back and he gets his head stuck in the jar. Now, there's all sorts of videos out there of animals getting their heads stuck in jars because it's easy to get, something stuck in there. There's a thing which is called the monkey trap. And I don't know how effective it is at actually catching monkeys, but the idea is that you have a jar, and the jar has a hole like this, which is just big enough for a monkey to get its hand into. And inside of the trap, inside the jar, you put a banana. So the monkey reaches into the jar, grabs the banana, but because the hand is a little bit bigger when it's holding the banana, it can't get the hand out. Although it goes in empty, it can't come out closed. And so the monkey refuses to let go of the banana, he's trapped to the jar. So that's called the monkey trap. And so Pooh gets his head stuck in the jar, kind of a monkey trap. This is now the second time that Pooh has been stuck because of going after food. So this is kind of a recurring theme. And once again, Pooh is not the shiniest hammer. So, Pooh and Piglet. And of course, Christopher Robin comes along and saves the day. And he realized that Piglet was panicked over nothing, which once again is a common theme that we'll see again and again, that, Piglet jumps to conclusions and jumps to the wrong one. And if he hadn't been so scared going into it, he could have waited a little bit, looked a little bit more, and realized that it was a jar with the word honey written on it. Now, honey, when spelled out normally, is Honey, but anytime it was talked about being written on the jar, it was Hunny, because Christopher Robin, the young boy, is like 6 or 7 and can't spell. So he writes it out phonetically, and that's kind of a close way to spell honey. But anyway, so Pooh and Piglet train catch a heffalump. Just end up kind of embarrassing themselves, you know. Piglet's embarrassed because he panicked. Pooh's embarrassed because he got his head stuck in the jar.